Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Honest Careers. Today, I have a very special guest. This is Casey Gauss, and Casey has a remarkable story of building a massive company called Viral Launch, working as the CEO, and now actually serves as the vice president, as one of the vice presidents, rather, for a company that just reached $1 billion valuation called Thrasio. Casey, how are you doing today, man?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me in the nice intro.
Dude, I'm so excited to have you. We've got a lot of really cool things to talk about today. The question that I always like to start off with is, who is Casey Gauss?
Isn't that a question we're always asking ourselves? Who's Casey Gauss? I'm someone that, had a interesting growing up, maybe a different path than a lot of other people, but passionate about helping and always trying to learn and push things forward.
Why don't you start off telling us a little bit about your background, just kind of how you grew up? Where did your life start?
Yeah, growing up, I had, fairly rough upbringing, but others have definitely had it worse. But yeah, we moved around a lot. I, went through like evictions, cars repossessed. It was a pretty tough kind of growing up. But my background, I went to college running track, small kind of Christian college in Indiana, studied business and taught myself to code in my free time. Some entrepreneur came and spoke in my class and got me really excited about like making money. And so taught myself how to code, dropped out. And that's when my more professional career started.
Gotcha. Well, so you're going to school, you're studying business, but you also learn how to start coding. What made you want to get into coding?
Yeah, I'm someone that likes to kind of see data or like prove something before kind of going all in. And so a lot of these like business ideas are like ways to make money involve tech or, some app or something of the sort. And I wanted to be able to prove it. I had no money. I didn't come from like a wealthy background. So my parents didn't have money. So in order to test these things, I needed to be able to build them myself. So that was like the catalyst for learning to code.
Gotcha. Well, what was your first project once you started to learn how to code? Was it Viral Launch from the start? Were there things before that?
Yeah, there were a bunch of things before that. I would say initially, I learned web technology so I could make websites and made some money, making websites for some people that I knew. And then it got into iOS apps. So I was coding iOS apps for fun. Like I made this little social network. I never released it, but it was like pretty cool. And then it was nice because these projects, while they didn't amount to anything, really taught me the technologies that I needed to make Viral Launch.
What was the way, when you said you're self-taught when it comes to coding, what was the way that you actually learned, and how long did it take before you were able to make any amount of money from coding?
Yeah, that's a good question. I recommend everybody go as deep as they are willing to when it comes to coding. I think it teaches you, a different kind of logic process, which I think is very valuable. But also, if you want to own your own company someday, as the way things are moving, like technology is going to be an important part of that. And the more savvy you are in the realm, the better you will be able to push your company forward. But in terms of learning, there's plenty of sites and more every day. I use a site called Codecademy. It was free and it was like a nice way of getting a very introductory kind of education to coding. And then from there, I just started trying to build stuff, and I would use YouTube videos or whatever to walk me through tutorials, how to make a login page and so forth. And it's definitely hitting. The more you jump into a project, the more you realize like you don't know what you're doing. And it's a lot of kind of like faking it, if you will, or like reverse engineering existing code. But I think something, this guy that I knew how to code helped me by saying basically like you just got to take it one step at a time. Anyone that's learned to code started the way that you have or are or will, and just taking it day by day allow you to get to this better point. But yeah, I probably knew how to code maybe 2.5 years before I started Viral Launch and actually making money. I guess with the websites, maybe it was more like 6 to 9 months before I made any money.
Gotcha. So not too long of a time frame, about 6 to 9 months for entry level kind of website development, and a little bit longer for more advanced stuff. I like what you're saying as well, because I totally agree. Everything seems really complex and really difficult until you start piecing it together, and then it's suddenly not so difficult anymore. Now, the audience today, they might not know about Viral Launch, and they might not even know about FBA. So can you kind of explain what is the whole idea behind Viral Launch and what you're building?
Yeah, I mean, just some like I guess fun stats. So we started in October of 2014, and the mission was to help Amazon sellers grow their business. And yeah, we don't need to go too much like Amazon detail, but so I started with another guy. He put $700 into the business. I had no money at the time. Part of the story is like my brother and I were living in an apartment, couldn't afford heat. And I coded VireLaunch with socks on my hands because it was literally too cold in our apartment in Indiana in the winter to type. And, you know, if you Google how to type when it's cold, cutting holes in the end of socks and sticking your fingers through is the answer, apparently. And it did work, but so we started with $700 and we were profitable that first month. And so we started in October. By July, we were profiting about $50,000 a month, which is, you know, pretty incredible. Bootstrapped off that $700. And so it was a tool designed to help Amazon sellers. And I was able to continue to kind of build on top of that. It was very helpful that I knew how to code. So we weren't hiring anybody or dependent on anybody for helping us to like build a tool, move things forward. I worked, you know, crazy hours. And yeah, I ended up, you know, buying out my partner a year in because I was pushing so hard. He wasn't interested in like, you know, investing as much time as I was. And I felt like he was kind of holding the company back. We still have a good relationship, but yeah, I mean, you know, basically I think 2018, we had over 70 employees. We bootstrapped to about a $10 million ARR, and yeah, 70 employees. We helped tens of thousands of brands, and these brands or sellers were anywhere from entrepreneurs just getting started in the Amazon space to some major Fortune 100 brands as well. And so the experience has been, you know, just incredible.
For sure. So I want to kind of break down, because obviously there's a bit of time between that initial concept where you said, hey, we've got something here that is actually valuable to Amazon sellers, versus later down the road when the company really kind of hit its stride and grew a lot. What was that original version of VireLaunch? What was it actually doing? And how was that similar, or like how simple or complex was it to the later version of VireLaunch? Like what was that original, just the original idea?
Yeah. So the original idea was that the more sales a product gets on Amazon, even if it's at a discount, the better Amazon shows it up in search. So, you know, the higher you will rank organically when someone searches fish oil, they'll, you know, see your fish oil. And so basically we ran ads to build up an audience of deal seekers, and we would promote our seller customers' products to this audience. And so it was pretty cool. So, you know, for $500, we got to 1,000 buyers, and we ended up growing that buyer list like over 500,000 people, which was pretty cool. And I learned a lot in terms of growing an audience through that experience. But that original concept actually still exists at VireLaunch today, of promoting products at a discount to these buyers. Some of the details have changed, but a lot of that existing code that I wrote like very early days in terms of facilitating basically the handoff between a seller's product and coupons and promotion to the buyer audience still exists today, which is kind of cool. And I'm a little proud of that. But I think something that is important, you asked like, what did that like look like initially? I mean, the cool thing is it took me maybe like 3 days to get like the very first version up and running. And I think something that a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs miss is the importance of testing early and getting something out there super fast. You know, I met this Uber driver, and he's been working on this app for like 6 years. And I sat down, we grabbed coffee, and like he could have done the app without the software. He could have done it with, you know, manually and with Google Sheets or something like that. And walking through a very, very simplified version of whatever your idea is going to give you a lot of very important feedback. It's going to tell you, do customers even care about this? Are they willing to pay for this? Are they satisfied or whatever? And could potentially dramatically, you know, change the course of this app that you're hoping to build, and potentially will allow you to start generating revenue to help you fund whatever the development costs are. Like that's a major mistake I see a lot of people make. And I've made it in the past, but with VireLaunch, we were able to spin something up in, you know, a few days and literally start making money or profit that first month.
Gotcha. So you kind of realized early on that sellers had a huge need for, when they're launching a product, that if they could increase that sales velocity early on, that it was going to help them rank. And so it was a real big question of how could you put people who are willing to buy the product at a discount in touch with the people who are trying to sell those products. And when we're talking about it right now, that's an incredibly simple thing, just from an organizational standpoint to set up. And so you're saying in about 3 days, more or less, you put together just a rough scaffolding, like a functional way for that to work, and then put it out to the market and said, hey, do people actually want this? Will people get value? And the answer was, it seemed like yes. What kind of happened after that, and how were you able to scale this thing that you built in 3 days? Obviously, it wasn't like all flowers and roses after that, right? Because what happened next, and from a technical standpoint, like what went into that? What you're saying was like a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah. I mean, So like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of dreamers, or have a lot of ideas, and it was very easy to extrapolate and say, oh, it'd be so cool if this tool could do X, Y, and Z. But like, that takes time, and there's a lot of assumptions in there. So what was so nice about Viral Launch, because we had people using this right off the bat, we were getting feedback from sellers that said, hey, this is annoying during setup, or hey, it would be a lot cooler if you had X, Y, or Z. And same with the buyer side. It was like, we were just sending it via email. We were doing a lot of this stuff manually. And buyers were like, yeah, sometimes I don't get the emails, or I forget to check my email. It'd be nice if there was a website I could go to see what deals are available. So literally, I mean, I was thinking about this last night in terms of like, you look at a company like Viral Launch, 70 employees and thousands of customers, and in many different tools. And it's easy to look at Viral Launch from the outside and at like, this later date and say, wow, it's crazy. How did you decide to put all these things in the right place? But like, the answer is you just, when building out a team, you just hire someone to do the stuff that needs to get done, kind of thing. And when you're building stuff, you're just building the stuff that, people are asking for. And so initially, because we didn't have this grandiose vision of what this could be, it was more so like, let's just serve the needs of the people asking and paying us. It was just like so straightforward. And so we never wasted, a bunch of time building a feature that people didn't need. Sometimes we'd have ideas, and I'd hack this stuff together in 3 days, a few days, maybe a week, and we'd test it out. And will people pay for this, or does this improve their experience? And sometimes the answer was no, but we only wasted a few days. And a lot of the time the answer was yes, because we were getting that real kind of in-person, in-time feedback. So yeah, we had this initial tool, and we just continued to scale it, and a subscription model versus just like a one-time fee. And we continued to like add social proof to the websites to make the buying experience better. Just like, again, very straightforward things once you're in the mix. And when, we had this initial tool, I wanted to diversify. And so I started to offer additional services based on what customers were asking for, started to hire a team to take some of the development off my plate. I tried outsourcing and just didn't work. And then we ended up hiring some in-house developers. But again, we were very fortunate because we were making $150,000 a month before we were making these legitimate hires.
That's super interesting, Casey. And so I think that's a fantastic story. And obviously, just for the benefit of the audience here, I'll let you guys know. And Casey might not say this himself, but there was a point in time where by far Viral Launch was in the Amazon FBA space, the tool. I remember when I first learned how to sell on Amazon for my business partner, Eric, I started out using Jungle Scout, but then because Viral Launch became so feature rich, it just didn't even make sense. It was definitely the dominant player. And I really like how you're saying the thought of how you're conceptualizing the product development. It wasn't your team coming up with these ideas. It was listening to the market and saying, what features do people want? Let's go build those. And even if we get it wrong, it's a very low input, very low investment on time and labor. Now, guys, this is kind of where we're going to switch over the interview now. Casey does not work with Viral Launch anymore. My friend Liron just did a great interview, and you can check that out over on eCommerce Mindset for the whole breakdown of exactly what happened there. Casey, can you tell us what are you currently working on right now?
Yeah, so in 2018, I helped start a company called Thrasio, and the goal was to basically buy up a bunch of these Amazon brands, roll them up, and you can sell them for a higher multiple to kind of generalize or simplify things. And so a person that was on the Viral Launch board, he's kind of a mentor to me and had a good relationship. He basically wanted to do this roll up. And so I ended up giving up my equity and like my founder title and stuff because I felt like it was a conflict of interest, because Thrasio is essentially an Amazon seller and it was competing with the customers over at Viral Launch. Back in April, at the time it is September, I joined the senior leadership team. My formal title is Vice President of SEO. But yeah, so Thrasio, I mean, in the last 2 years, it's the fastest company to profitably reach $1 billion valuation in the US ever, which is, pretty incredible. And Thrasio is again, just buying these Amazon brands and then just applying this world-class process and success tactics to help these brands then grow post-acquisition. And, as of a few months ago, we were at $1 billion valuation after only acquiring 60 to 70 accounts. And there's like $30,000 million plus sellers on Amazon. So we're literally just scratching the surface. So what's so interesting, I had a surprising amount of like opportunities after leaving Viral. But the way that I look at my role here at Thrasio is I get a front row seat to learning what it's like to scale a startup to $1 billion valuation, to 5 billion, 10 billion, and wherever we go. And the opportunity to kind of like be a part of that, to learn firsthand what the decisions are that lead to success, that are, less than ideal decisions, is so, exciting to me. It's also like a great resume builder, so that when I go do my next thing, I can point and say, here's what I did at Fire Launch. I can say, I was part of the executive leadership team of the fastest company to profitably reach $1 billion valuation, and, X, Y, and Z. And so, yeah, this is like a very important learning, like stepping stone for me.
So this is super interesting. And so Casey, just remind us, for the benefit of the audience, how old are you?
Yeah, I'm 27.
So you're 27 years old, right? You dropped out of college. You're self-taught on how to code. You build this company, Viral Launch, from a very minimal startup. You grow it into this 70+ person team, a multi-million-dollar company, right? You stop doing that. You look out at the world and you're like, okay, you could literally do anything at this point. And, everyone in the community knows your name. You end up moving over, and now you're this VP of this company that's worth more than $1 billion, just scratching the surface. For some people watching this, it's hard to put the gaps together. How long did this whole process from dropping out of college into where you are now, what kind of time frame are we talking about here?
Yeah, I would say that the process started a little sooner. So I started Viral Launch when I was 21, so is about 6 years ago. But the process started a little before that, probably 3 years before that, when I'm 19 and a freshman in college, and I started getting this kind of hunger for entrepreneurship, and I really started spending a lot of time reading. Like to this point, I to this day I read maybe 2 to 6 hours a day or so, and I think it's very important. I read a lot of so books, I think are important, but I also, read a lot of newsletters and try to just stay current on what's going on, because I think pattern recognition is important. And Warren Buffett calls reading, this compound interest of seeing these patterns. So, the process started like 6+ years ago.
Gotcha. And so obviously I think it's pretty clear that reading is a big part. What other things do you think contributed to your ability to have this kind of success? And on the same, the opposite side of the coin, what kind of mistakes and failures did you have along the way to becoming a CEO, to becoming a VP at a company like Thrasio?
Yeah, great question. So contributing factors, I would say, like optimism. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are optimistic and, willing to bet on themselves and basically hoping that things will work out, or, that tomorrow will be better if you put in the effort. So I think that's pretty important. Work ethic, I ran track in college. I wouldn't say that I was someone that was like naturally athletic, but like I just worked so hard. And I think like the willingness to work hard is just so important. And that reading, I would say, is like absolutely critical. And even at like a level that people are in non-obvious level, is like continuing to sharpen your mind allows you to be sharp in your daily decisions, which I think is just so important. Your network is so valuable. And like, I can't tell you how many hurdles I've been able to jump over, or accelerants to my life or to my business have come from relationships. And I've seen it in my friends as well. And just like a willingness to kind of like jump in and take action. I mean, if I was like too timid to drop out of school and take action, I'd probably just like be making a, okay salary at some large company and just not exactly happy with my life and the impact that I'm having on the world. But it was because I was willing to just like jump in and see what happens and kind of iterate from there. It's allowed like a lot of success down the road, like being willing to test and iterate. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, move on. But hopefully you've learned something in the process, is a very important mindset.
Gotcha. That's really helpful stuff. And I want to, in the beginning, you were chatting. We're gonna get into some tips you have in regarding to the technical side of things and skill sets. But one more question I want to ask is, you talk early on about you had a little bit of a rough upbringing. Do you think that motivated you to try to say, hey, I got to go make something stick? And what tips might you have for someone who's sitting there that is in a similar situation? They're like, my life sucks right now. What tips do you have for someone in that frame of mind, in that reference? What can you offer there, Casey?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the rough upbringing has done three major things for me. One, it gives me a good degree of empathy, I would say, meaning that I can empathize with somebody that their parents are in jail or have been through these difficult experiences, and helps me to not judge other people, at least I like to think. Number two, I didn't really have a fallback, so it wasn't if I drop out of college and things don't work out, my parents are gonna support me or something. I could have lived at my dad's house, but I still would have had to do student loans and all these things. So I didn't really have a fallback, and I had a fire, behind me, making sure that I was continuing to charge forward and felt like I had something to prove. Then the third thing, I don't remember what that was. Now I forgot the rest of your question. Sorry.
No, man, you're all good. That's I think that's a good segment. We'll kind of move into the next spot there. So, this channel is really a lot about honest careers and, building skill sets that are actually going to be valuable and allow you to go and chase whatever your ideal and dream life is. Can you maybe offer some insights in terms of what skill sets? You've hired a lot of people, you've worked with a lot of people, you've worked with some of the biggest companies as well. What kind of skill sets do you see are really valuable in 2020 for someone who's young to go out and gain?
Yeah, I realizing that if you don't like something or something is not the way that you wish it to be, you probably need to change it, influence it, or at least change your situation and how it affects you. And it's been so cool in this industry of Amazon entrepreneurs to be able to see the amazing stories of how people grew up in poverty and they just didn't want to have it anymore. Or I know in my own experience growing Viral Launch, you run into these hurdles, and I would say the average person would be like, dang, here's a hurdle, that's the end of it. But not enough people realize that you have the opportunity to change these things. And if you don't like something, then you should, think outside the box and say, how could I change this? Or how, if I had my way, how would this thing look? And a lot of times, if you're willing to think outside the box, you can probably come up with a good solution. And I think this ambition or willingness to charge through hurdles is just so important. Yeah. In my experience, having, teams, the people that are willing to just get stuff done, no excuses, are head and shoulders above everybody else in life, I would say, because you run into hurdles, whether it's just in your everyday life or a career or as an entrepreneur. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And I just want to chime in as well. Something that, what you're talking about is, I think there's a whole world of what we all find normal, but then based on who you're interacting with in the community you spend time with, kind of getting back to that Amazon or that entrepreneurship community, it's when you're surrounded by people that all the time are looking out at the world, and if there's something that's not right, they're doing something about it, that becomes your new normal. And it actually becomes a little bit weird to go and hang out with other people, because it's just a completely different mindset for how to view and approach the world. It's a really great point.
Absolutely. I would say self-awareness is also very important. In my experience hiring, people that were not as self-aware really struggled to have success. And then I think just having the willingness and the optimism to dream big and chase after those dreams. I never would have expected that I'd be where I am today, but because I dreamed along the way and I chased after things that were probably further ahead or higher to reach, or a little further out of reach than most would, go for. But I was willing to do that, I think has really led to, some of my success, and then just a willingness to learn and to be very intentional about your learning and your focus on self-improvement. I mean, the average person is not going and building a, $1 million company or having the success that you probably desire. And if you are very intentional about chasing after that and being of, a higher caliber than the average person, which I believe you have the opportunity to do so, you can. And again, with these barriers, it's people will say, I don't know how to code. And then they leave it at that. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how to code, so let's change that. I'm going to go learn to code so that I can make all this stuff, right? Like there's just no way that I was going to let these hurdles get in my way. I think it is so important.
What's your recommendation for, obviously the world, back in the day, you couldn't do anything in terms of building out websites, building out programs, building out applications unless you knew how to code. Now that's changing a bit, right? You can actually go put together an e-commerce store. Things are becoming more templated. Do you think, what would your recommendation in 2020, do you think it's still actually valuable to learn how to code?
I think it really depends on the industry that you want to, invest in and spend your time in. But I mean, whether it's like, the financial markets or retail or like, I think that in a lot of scenarios, knowing how to code is very important. One, again, it changes your logic process and allows you to think about things differently, which I find super valuable to this day. But then secondly, I mean, you are likely going to have technical people on your team or pushing some application website or something like that. And the more you understand technically, I think is better. And I just know so many people that try to start a company and because they aren't technical, they really struggle to find that technical co-founder and they struggle to get off the ground. So I see that. I think at the end of the day, coding is to an end and there is a hurdle that, in your way because you don't know how to code, then you need to get around that hurdle. And for some people that will mean learning to code. For others, being able to hire or partner with somebody. So I wouldn't advise it to everybody. If you have the free time or, you're in high school, kind of still trying to figure out what you want to do. Or if you're in the season of trying to figure out what you want to do, using some of your free time to learn like the tech side of things will pay off, I think, quite well.
Yeah, that makes good sense. What about in terms of education, right? So obviously you came from a background where you went to college, but you didn't quite finish college. Now, I don't think I've ever met a single person who's successful that says education is garbage. It's just probably the manner in which education is being consumed. What have you seen recently and maybe just over your experience, what do you think is actually a good way of consuming? Is there anything you might want to highlight that, hey, this was actually valuable, or maybe you hired people that came from different programs or concepts? I'm curious to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're very interested in coding, like there's some nice like coding boot camps that are like 12 weeks or so that will help accelerate your ability to kind of understand the tech world. In general, like, I mean, I'm thankful that there are a couple of key classes like microeconomics that was very important to me, as well as like an introductions to business and then a philosophy class. But And for me, by the time I had dropped out, I felt comfortable in, my ability to learn. I taught myself to code, was decent at it. And, I had the mindset I felt like that I needed in order to move forward. I think that colleges can be a great experience overall and will, potentially help you to mature. But in any situation, like just going to class is not enough. You should be doing other things, whether it's starting a small like e-com business or interning in a company. Like you need to be doing something else. Like, one of my problems was you have all these business majors that like just think that they're going to be quote unquote business people or marketers once they graduate. It's like, this is more of like a function of who you are and what you're interested in. And you should be chasing after that along the way. And some of the smartest people that I've worked with, that I've hired or that I know don't have a formal college education. And totally fine. But if you don't know what you want to do, my recommendation, like if you can kind of afford it, is go to college. Test out a bunch of stuff along the way. Like college just really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and continue to sharpen yourself outside the classroom in ways you think are important. But if you don't know what to do, like sitting on the couch is not the way to go.
Gotcha. And I think that's a really great point as well, because this world is so vast. And I think for you and for maybe myself and for other people, eventually, if you put yourself out there enough and you try enough things, eventually you're going to get that one thing that clicks. And that's the thing that you'll be up, it'll be 2 a.m, you'll be working, you'll be exhausted, but you're so excited about what you're doing, you can't go to sleep. You just want to keep going. And if you haven't gotten that feeling, if you haven't found it, then you probably just need to keep spreading that net, keep searching for more things. And when it clicks, double down on that and, really pursue those options.
Absolutely.
I guess just a couple questions kind of to wrap up here. Is the big one, right? Because again, you've been the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. You're the VP of so far a billion-dollar company, but soon to be a multi-billion-dollar company. Casey Gauss, have you made it?
I was discussing this with a friend yesterday. I would say in a lot of ways, yeah. In my mind, no. But like I'm extremely grateful. I make good money, have made very good money, especially for someone that's 27, and I just get to live like a very comfortable life now. And so I think for a lot of people, I've absolutely made it. For myself, I definitely have not yet made it. I haven't had the impact on the world that I would like to, and I think that it's important, at least for me, to continue to perpetuate this belief that I have not made it, because that's what continues to drive me.
Gotcha. And I think that's the perfect segue into our final question. And it's okay to leave this a little bit ambiguous, but what's next for Casey Gauss?
Yeah, I see Thrasio as like a stepping stone for what's next for me. I am not entirely sure what that looks like. I'm experimenting with some stuff. I really doubt that my next big thing is in e-commerce. Like, it's been cool. I still think e-commerce is very early, but it's definitely not my passion. I don't feel like I have as big of an impact on people that need it in the e-com world. So yeah, not sure exactly. I have some ideas, running some experiments, but yeah, we'll see.
Gotcha. Well, Casey, thank you so much for joining us, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, if you have questions, please let us know down in the comments below. Casey, thanks again so much for joining us. If people want to reach out and they want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably just through my personal Instagram. It's just Casey Gauss. Yeah, that's the fastest way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Casey. This has been super fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. I want to encourage you to go and check out our digital marketing playlist. There's a bunch of videos that have a ton of information and good insights on the world of digital marketing. Go and check it out.